AAUW is me.
I wanted to meet some new people and do some different things. And I also wanted to be part of an organization that had a social commitment to young women and the community at large.
I want to be a contributing member of an organization where women help women in promoting education, in making friends, in entertaining one another, and in sharing ideas about this world.
Women would want to join the AAUW because we have a very fierce commitment to equality and equity for women and girls. And if that's something that you're interested in, this is one of the best venues to help channel that energy.
Hello, welcome to AAUW Connections. Tonight we're going to be talking about a relatively new concept in senior living, and it's called Avenidas Village, and it's an in-home living for seniors with some twists that maybe you haven't heard about. And our guests tonight to talk to us about it are VICKIE EPSTEIN, who is the director of Avenidas Village, and JOANN, who is a member of Avenidas Village. So between them, they have a wealth of knowledge, and our only concern is whether we're going to have enough time. But let's start, before we talk about Avenidas Village, there is the overall organization called Avenidas. So Vicki, why don't you tell us a little bit about Avenidas first?
Well, Avenidas is the senior center for Palo Alto. And it has been in Palo Alto for, actually about 42 years. And so it is a tried and true organization, and it sponsors a variety of different programs, of which Avenidas Village is the newest program, but there are 7 other programs: health and wellness, a Department of Lifelong Leisure and Learning, social work, support services, volunteers. We also have a senior day health center. The only one of the programs that is not on site is in Mountain View.
Yes, and probably many people have seen its vans.
Exactly, probably coming and going in Palo Alto and beyond.
Now, as you said, Avenidas is the senior center essentially for Palo Alto, but it seems to me that it has members from many of the surrounding communities, does it not? Especially, I've heard of it most for the Learning Center. It's practically, in a way, like a little university in itself, is it not?
That is true, yes. So, and of course, the catchment area, or the geographic area that Avenidas serves, is of course all of Palo Alto, and that is our core. But then any city that touches on Palo Alto is also part of that.
So that's how that's defined.
Exactly.
And people from any of those areas are welcome to take part in the activities at Avenidas.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay, so it's 42 years old, you said, Avenidas. And now let's get to Avenidas Village, which is really our topic for the evening. And how does it fit into Avenidas?
Well, it's the newest program. We launched this program in October of 2007, so we're coming up on our 4th birthday. And it is a fairly new concept. Avenidas Village follows the guidelines of the original village model.
Yes, and where was...
Yes, in Boston, actually, Beacon Hill Village in Boston.
Okay.
And we have learned a great deal from Beacon Hill Village, and now there are villages springing up all over the country. There are close to 60 villages that are operational.
Now, JOANN, when you first heard of Avenidas Village, and I understand from our conversation earlier that you were practically a founding member. You were one of the...
As soon as that... Well,
yes.
What happened was our local papers and the Avenidas magazine kept giving little hints that this was coming. And, you know, my big thing was, great, but when?
What? Don't stop teasing me.
Exactly. So when it did materialize, yes, I very definitely signed on the dotted line that I wanted to be included in this, because there was a cutoff of 300 when it started. Wasn't that right? 300?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you had been, so when it actually became a reality and you went and signed up, did you have a pretty good idea? Had you heard of Beacon Hill?
Yes. Yes.
You had, because I remember reading about Beacon Hill some years ago in the New York Times.
Yes, the papers did quite a few write-ups about Beacon Hill prior to the village materializing, so you understood the concept. And to this day, we still have people who will say, well, where is this village? And to get them to realize it's a concept and not a destination.
And as you, so it really is, one of its purposes, as I understand it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is to help seniors and to stay in their home, not to have to move to a village somewhere.
That's exactly right.
So,
yes.
And how do you do that?
Well, we enable people to maintain their independence in their own home by a fairly simple, straightforward system. Each one of our members receives a phone number, one phone number that they call, whatever their needs, whatever their issues. And on the receiving end of that phone call are concierge, myself and a member service manager, who, along with the member, really come up with a plan on how to resolve that need. And the way in which we do that
specific need, whatever that need, the purpose of that phone call was.
Exactly. And the way in which we do that is by working with a whole menu of vetted, discounted service providers. And all of these service providers, we started out with 30. We now have 170. We have contracted with all of them individually.
And what kind of services do they provide?
Oh, a whole variety. As you can imagine, in 170, we're really talking about a lot of different categories. But I would say that we break that down into about 50% of those providers really speak to maintenance of the home and of the property, because if members are going to feel peace of mind, they want to know that their home is being well maintained. And the other 50% are really more providers that speak to the personal well-being of the member.
Such as?
Home health care agencies, home care agencies, therapies in your home, mobile dental hygienists.
Oh, that's interesting. Mobile dental hygienists.
Yes.
Well, I mean, if you're a bed patient and you've got a toothache.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
And there were two magic words in there, and they were vetted and discounted.
Yes.
And so, because you're able to provide the service providers with a built-in clientele, as it were, they are therefore able to they are willing to discount their costs. Is that so?
Exactly, for the village members.
And then there's the vetting, which is I would think is so important.
And you know what is really fabulous? It's 24/7.
Oh, so if you had a plumbing need at 2 in the morning
on a Sunday night,
you could actually call Avenidas Village, and someone is there there's a human being to answer
and
you.
in our binders, it will say, this plumber accepts weekend calls, or that type of thing.
Oh, so you have to...
We have binders.
Yes, but you have to call the plumber, or do they call you first, Vicki?
Actually, the way that 24/7 service works, and that's after hours or on weekends, is that the member would call that same number, and then they would be alerted that this was, of course, the after hours, but please press 3 to speak with somebody about your issue. They would then get one of our folks at our answering service, who are all trained to know all of our 24/7 providers and a whole lot more, and then that answering service person would patch that member through to the particular provider that was appropriate for the need. So they stay on the line until that member is talking with the home care agency. Oh, yes.
Okay. And have you had occasion to use some of these service providers?
Only when I broke my ankle. And that was... The village came to my rescue. I didn't even have the presence of mind to call the village, but a neighbor did. And
which speaks well for Avenidas Village, that the neighbor thought, oh, I'll call Avenidas. She must have known that you were a member.
She knows that I'm a member, exactly.
But still, that she knew to call.
Exactly. And within hours, I had a porta potty, I had a walker, I had a visiting home care person who just evaluated what I might need or not need. A stool to put in your shower.
Oh, yes.
Any number of things. It was just, I think they brought crutches, but I already had crutches. And I mean, it was extremely comforting to know that they were on board.
Now, this is particularly interesting to me because this is you think of an emergency. Your neighbor called Avenidas Village, and did she then? You said because you were in such pain and, you know, probably taking pain, well, whatever, you were in a lot of pain and couldn't really handle everything yourself. So did she have to
make good decisions.
Yeah, exactly. So did she then have to negotiate with the home providers? Did they just give, did you all say, here's a home provider, call them?
No.
How does that work?
This is someone, and actually it's I think it's fairly small, isn't it? The one who will come for a half day, no charge, just to evaluate it, and then should you want them or need them, then you would consider hiring them.
And so that at that point, either you or a member of your family or a neighbor, a friend, someone would say, okay, I authorize you, service provider, to do these things. And they agree on a price. Which, is that how it works?
Well, that didn't go that far for me because that was a gratis visit. It was,
yes.
And
But the gratis visit didn't include giving you the, oh, well, I don't know if you had a walker, I guess not, but the toilet seat and the crutches.
Well, Avenidas Village did that.
They did that.
They have, they have a stash.
That's interesting. So that was an Avenidas Village employee who came with those things.
Yes, absolutely. And that is actually, we do one of the great, I think, special things about Avenidas Village is most of these village models around the country are standalone nonprofit organizations, but we are, of course, part of Avenidas. So we are able to utilize the services of the other departments at Avenidas.
Ah, so that's a real advantage.
It sure is. Durable equipment closet, we call it, coming out of the Health and Wellness Department, which was right there for us to be able to use for our village members as needed.
Oh, yeah. Now, let's back up a little. How much to become a member, what's the cost of becoming a member?
For me, I'm a single, so it's less than $1,000 a year. I'd say it's $800 and something. Isn't that right?
$825 for a single
membership. And then for couples,
membership.
of course, it's adjusted differently because it's not double what the singles would be, because it would be ministering to two people at one address. In other words, it's
so $1,050 for that two-person membership.
And in what way does Avenidas minister, in the general term, use of that word, general sense of that word, how does it take care of the needs of a couple? I mean, versus, I'm not sure I understand that.
That's an interesting question. In our particular village, we're about evenly matched with our persons, our what we call our dual membership, so two persons in a household, and our singles. Many of our couples are, I would say, functioning as one, but a twosome.
Yeah.
And so we are able, many of those folks are caregivers for their spouse, and the model of the village is really an outreach model. So what I mean is that in order for this to work, there has to be at least one person in the household who can recognize that there's a need or a problem and make that phone call. Call us to let us know that there's an issue. And so it works for singles as well as for couples, and that's the fashion in which this works, that the call is made, and then together with the member, we come up with kind of the case plan, how we're best going to resolve this issue or meet this need. Because there may be a variety of ways that we can meet the need.
Mm-hmm. That brings to mind another issue that we talked about earlier before we were on air. And I got the impression from you, Joanne, that when you first become a member, okay, here I am, and here's my $825 or $1,050, whatever it was. Now, does someone from Avenidas come to your home to do some kind of a general?
There is, I'm not going to say it's a screening. I would say it's an interview. Vickie comes to the home to assess what my needs would be, to explain to me what the village's role would be, and then she walks through the house, and if there would be something unsafe, she might point it out, and we could have a vendor. For instance, I had just before joining the village, I had the safety bars put in my bathtub.
Ah, yes.
And she noticed that right away. She said, "Oh, you've done that," you know. But that's the kind of thing.
So is it just that kind of an evaluation, or is it is this before any money actually changes hands, so that you're deciding, so that Avenidas Village is deciding, yes, this is someone we can really help, or maybe, no, you need more help than we can give, and is it for Joanne, for the Joannes, to say, you know, now that we talked about it, maybe this isn't exactly what I need. Is that what it is?
That's a great question. The first interview that Joanne is talking about generally takes place after a person has become a member, within that first couple of weeks. That interview, there is another type of interview, and I call those prospect interviews, where I meet with people before they've heard about the village and they want to learn more, and really talk to me about whether this is a good match for them personally.
And that takes place at Avenidas?
That takes place at Avenidas. Sometimes it takes place in their homes. Sometimes it takes place at an info coffee, in a variety of different places.
So it's flexible.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, in addition to the kind of care that you would get when you have to, the maintenance of the home or medical emergency, what other kind of services do you offer? What are some other benefits of being a member of Avenidas Village?
Well, a big part of Avenidas Village is also our social programming. If we're keeping people in their homes, we want to make sure they don't get isolated. And we want to keep them connected to their communities and their friends, so we have lots of different social events. We listen really carefully to what the members would like to do socially. Then there are a variety of different benefits, special services that come along with that membership, such as transportation to and from doctor's appointments where the doctor has ordered that a member cannot drive themselves home.
Do they have to pay in addition for that? Is there a cost?
No, that's a free, free transport
that's
for all
very
of those
big.
Kinds of procedures. Also, daily phone calls. If a member would like a daily phone call, that's optional, but that is just a benefit of the program. Certainly, the website, which has the secure pages and all of the information about our vendors and all of the information about the members, that's all online.
And that's
all
secure.
Of that information. And those are secure pages.
Especially the member information, I would think.
Exactly, yes. Earthquake preparedness assessment is another one of the benefits. They do PANDA does a wonderful job, very comprehensive assessment of one's home so that you can make sure that you're prepared for earthquakes, certainly, but other natural disasters as well. Medical alliances, another wonderful benefit of the program. The medical alliances are really relationships that we established with the local hospitals before we launched the program. So Stanford, El Camino. And what it really means for the member is that the medical organizations, Stanford, El Camino, have designated for us our contacts that are on site at the hospital. And when a member, a Avenidas Village member, is hospitalized, I have people right there in the hospital that I can contact to advocate for whatever my member needs when they're there in the hospital.
Oh, and that must be very helpful to the members of the family, you know, to the children who maybe live out of town, or
exactly,
and they know there is
and
someone
a
there.
Person.
Yeah, at Stanford or at El Camino. Maybe at Sequoia. Is that included too?
Sequoias is a relationship, a similar kind of relationship that we're working on.
Okay.
Yes.
So, so that member of the family can get in touch with that person, because so often if you're a member of the family, you're out of town, you just and maybe
you have a name. If you have a name,
exactly.
of someone, yeah.
Okay, so
Exactly.
that's and now the social activities. Is there a charge for those?
Minimal, and it would not be. For instance, we're going in June to North Beach. A flyer comes out on your computer, and if you don't have a computer, someone calls you, tells you how much you will need in the correct change for the train and for the Muni in San Francisco, and then we will all be going to lunch someplace, but we don't even know where, so you bring your own money for
But
lunch.
as far as the train and the bus, for example, do you each then have to go to the window at the train station to buy your ticket, or do you just give that correct amount to some leader of the group?
You go to a machine and buy your ticket. And
Okay.
If someone's having a problem,
Is there a guide with you?
Yes.
Okay.
And if there is someone having a problem, you automatically say, "Here, let me help you do that."
Okay.
And
No, I would be the one who needed help with the machine, guaranteed.
I think one of the biggest faux pas people make regarding the village is saying, when am I ready for the village? Because you will never know that until it's too late, and then you can't make decisions when you're in a trauma of any kind. You just don't make good decisions.
Yes.
So my feeling is for people to realize it's not if you're going to need assistance at some time, but when. And therefore be prepared and get your act together the same as you would before you have a toothache, you go to the dentist. Before you have such terrible poor vision, you go to the eye doctor, and so on. So I just feel it's common sense to take care of your senior years.
Well, certainly we all have examples as seniors of seeing friends and neighbors developing these problems, and it's an eye-opener than to think,
And you also
I ought to be thinking about that too.
With friends and neighbors, you also turn around and see their spouse, if they're fortunate enough to have a spouse, can't do it all. The spouse needs assistance.
So does Avenidas Village, for example, speaking of spouses needing assistance, when the spouse is the main caregiver, do you then have other sources for someone who might come in and give them a little respite?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's one of the particular service providers, home care agencies that provide that type of service that we use quite frequently. And for blocks of time during the week to do those kinds of activities that have gotten really difficult for our members to do. And so the home care agencies we use very, very frequently in terms of the providers.
And now, somewhere in our conversations in the last month or two, there was the mention of neighborhood clusters. What is a neighborhood cluster?
The neighborhood clusters are probably, in terms of social programming, our most effective way of getting our neighbors, our members, to really meet one another, to form relationships. What we did probably about a year into the program, we broke the membership of 300 into smaller groups, neighborhood clusters. We have 10 different neighborhood clusters, so about 30, a little bit better than 30 in each one of those. These are
literally in one neighborhood.
These are literally, we broke it all down by geographic area. So these are people who are meeting, who live very close to one another. And that particular part of the social programming is owned by the members. They do all of the kind of smaller programming within the cluster.
They might
meet
get
in
together
one another's
for coffee
houses.
or
Exactly.
Yes.
Get
Or
together for
wine and
coffee.
cheese tasting.
Yeah,
or
okay.
something. And the thing that's nice is they are developing differently in each cluster.
Sure,
For instance,
I could understand
some
that.
clusters always have a guest speaker, and then after the guest speaker leaves, they discuss the topic.
That's a good idea.
Others don't. Others have a theme for whatever.
Others might just get together to have a little, as you say, a cocktail hour.
Some
or
people,
something.
that's right. It's just,
So it grows out of what the needs of that or wants
Exactly.
of that particular group are.
So
now,
lot of different subcultures, I would say.
Now, you mentioned earlier that originally you had a limit of 300. Is that limit still in existence? I mean, you have to, if somebody wanted to join today and you already have 300, do they have to wait for someone to drop out?
No, actually we are.
Well, like the Girl Scouts.
We are open for business, certainly for all new members. And what we do is the business plan has always included a place at certain points at which we get to a membership of maybe 350, 370, between 350 and 375, another staff member who is brought on as an additional member services manager to manage all of the needs and requests that come in.
Are there age limits? I mean, do you, either upper or lower age limits on as to who may join?
At our Avenidas Village, our age limit is the same as it would be for the senior center, and that's age 50, so 50 plus. And on the other end, no parameter there.
And what is the average age, more or less?
Average age is 77. I would say the core is probably about 72, 73 to about maybe 83, 84. That's the core of the program.
Are there any health-related exclusions?
The only real exclusion, because this is, as I mentioned before, an outreach model where a person has to recognize that they have a problem and then make that call to us. If we see initially that a person has some cognitive issues, that is a problem, unless there is, and there are exceptions to that rule, sometimes a family member is very involved, maybe even living in that same dwelling, so they become the person who can call us.
And it could be, that could also be one of the setups where it's a husband and wife.
Yes, and that's very typical of our dual.
Wow, there's just so much here.
Households.
And in about 10 seconds, I just want to mention that you mentioned that there, at some regular intervals, you have a vendors fair, which to me sounds like just a wonderful.
It was wonderful. We had it this month.
How many vendors were there?
This month.
35. The first 35.
And you could go and. I'm sorry, the first 35?
There's 170, but the first 35 who respond get to have a table and to...
how often do you have this?
Once a year.
Okay,
Annual.
well, if you miss out one year, that really keeps you on your toes the next year, doesn't it?
Sure does.
And this just sounds like a terrific program. The benefits of not having, the psychic benefits in the sense of not having to worry, just about any of these issues and be able to stay in your own home. I thank you so much for coming tonight and telling us so much about this program. And thank you for watching AAUW Connections.
Thank you.